Hello, my name is Jared Wilson and welcome to my AEP 880 Module 1 video. The focus is for personal intro and cultural diversity awareness. I'd like to start out by introducing myself. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my passions, things that make me who I am. My puzzle piece, according to some of the resources and things researched in Module 1. I'd also like to say I'm going to try to be as clear and concise as possible, but I've definitely been sick for the last few weeks, so I'm just kind of trying to bear through and make sure that I'm still understandable. So we're going to go ahead and start. There's a picture of me in the bottom left-hand corner. My family ancestors all migrated here from Ireland. The two photos in the bottom, the first one shows all kinds of different professional athletes, something I've always participated in athletes, something I encourage kids to participate in, something my family has always participated in, and really it's any sport. Any sport that was available to us, we took advantage of. As of right now, in the bottom right, you see the snowmobile video. That is one of the biggest sports that I participate in now. Every winter is a huge snowmobile season for me. I'm very fortunate that I can travel about an hour away. I've got a cabin in the mountains, and I'm able to kind of do as I wish and as I please on a snowmobile, and it makes for a great opportunity, great time for me. It's something I do. People I communicate with, communities that I communicate with, conventions, things like that. Learning about avalanche awareness has definitely become a big part of my life. Stepping further, to break it down, I have two stepdaughters. I have Madison and Mackenzie. I have a yellow lab. His name is Pete. I enjoy fishing, camping, and sports. I really enjoy going on the side-by-side, riding snowmobiles. So as you can see in the bottom left, you've got a picture of myself, Madison, Mackenzie, and Jacqueline. And then next you have a picture of the side-by-side. Both these photos are kind of taken at the same time. It's at that cabin I had mentioned prior to, a place we like to go kind of get away from the city and really enjoy ourselves. The next picture is my lab Pete. He loves to go everywhere with me. He's definitely enjoyed the COVID at-home stay where he's gotten to be with me in the pride center focus of my attention. And just great overall dog. I really love him to death. The next photo to the right is myself and the two kiddos at a Colorado Rockies game. Again, sports oriented stuff that we like to go. We like to be entertained to go to those things. And then up at the top, you'll see an excavator. I have also been an operator with Wilson Excavation. It's a company that has been family owned for generations. Something I do in the summertime when I'm not at work. And something that I enjoy. We put everything in from septic systems to water systems to electrical. We build foundations for houses, things like that, and it's just something that is so different than teaching that I really truly enjoy. It doesn't just tire the brain; it tires the body, which is something that sometimes teaching I struggle with, and something that I really enjoy. Something that has been introduced down from generation to generation. I kind of laughed. I was talking to my brothers and kind of what they also felt, and something that we had always found was that stubbornness. You can usually find stories of every one of us being very stubborn. Not always good. Not always bad, but stubbornness is definitely something that's been passed down, as well as firearm collection. My family's got a large firearm collection that's that would surprise many. And it's something that I've kind of grown fond to, finding rare items that, are not being made anymore. Things like that I really enjoy. Same with hunting and fishing. My family's hunted for years. We've used the same location, the same resources. Not necessarily always about the hunting, but the bonding and the time that you get to spend with one another is crucial. It's a time of year that my brothers, my cousins, all get to sit down away from technology, away from the world, and we're just together. And it's extremely important to me, something I hope to pass on to my kids as well. And fishing, kind of the same scenario. Spent a lot of time in the boat with my parents, spent a lot of time with my brothers, and hoping to pass that down as well. Looking at the professional side of things, so I went to Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado. After that, I taught 4 years at Fremont Elementary School. and then 2 years at Swallows Charter Academy. It's in Pueblo West, Colorado. We're currently a public charter with 3 track and 24 students. The top left-hand corner was Fremont. It kind of was my starting ground where I learned a lot of things I really, hold high regards for some of the learnings and some of the teachings and practices that I do today. The very bottom left is kind of a picture of what it looks like where I live. A lot of shrubs, not a ton of trees until you kind of get into the mountains, but I'm really close to those mountains. They're not, not too far off before you start getting into different terrain. Yet we're still kind of flat, almost desert-like as well. The next picture in is the Pueblo West Cyclones. Something I do that ends up being almost year-round is I coach high school football. I enjoy it. It's, it is time consuming, but it's worthwhile. I enjoy that I get to teach elementary and I get to work with high school students. It gives a huge diverse learning curve, and I think it helps me in my classroom with how to relate to my students, because I am having to relate with students that are at different levels of maturity and such like that. On the top, I guess middle right, is Fort Lewis College. It's where I attended school, a place that I love to death. If I could have afforded to stay there, live there, and still teach, I would have. But unless you have a bigger bank account than that, it's kind of a difficult area to do that. But a place I definitely like to go back and visit and spend vacation in. And then last is my Spartans logo. That is where I'm at now. It is at SCA, Swallows Charter Academy, and somewhere I'm proud to be a part of. Something that truly fulfills my everyday, that makes sure that, I want to go back to work. It's a great place to work, a great community to work in. To kind of break that apart, dive into Module 1. It's focused on cultural and diversity awareness. Source 1 was preparing for cultural diversity, resources for teachers. So it focuses on multicultural classrooms. It teaches tolerance. These kind of classrooms focus on gender issues, race issues, ethnicity issues, and sexual orientation. Not just issues, but just kind of giving more information and more awareness. Focuses on awareness activities and engagement activities, so getting students more involved with the community, more aware of some of the community that's around them, and engages them in doing so. It also provides opportunities for diverse learners, such as ELL resources, trying to really establish a wider range of materials for all audiences. It also identifies lesson plans that are more inclusive, that teach more inclusiveness and are ready to use strategies. The other thing this resource is highlighted on was the library resources. I included the picture on the bottom right because the forefront of all of this is to build trust, to allow all students to grow, all cultures to grow, and all cultures to be shared and embraced. And truly it comes down to trust and just being able to feel comfortable enough to do so. Moving on to number 2, cultural diversity, the sum of our parts. So looking at 7 to 10 second impressions turns into conclusions. So this video talked a lot about how you don't know anyone off of the first impression, the first 7 to 10 seconds, but that many preconceptions come from this. And you don't learn really about any diverse backgrounds other than that first impression. You have to really get to know people to do so. Communication is the forefront. It leads to understanding. Ways we do that, ways we communicate with our community is shared meals, celebrations, ceremonies, and conversations. Something that I think SEA is trying to do because we are a very different background. We don't have a specific area where we pull students. We pull students from all over the district. So we have a wide range of cultures in our school, and I think that SCA has worked hard to try to provide those kind of meals where we do family dinners, we do celebrations, we do ceremonies, and we have open dialogue and conversations with parents to see what they feel is important for their child to learn and to bring into school. This resource focused on the jigsaw puzzles. So what are your pieces? What do they look like? Who are you? What do you identify with? Kind of those 10 pictures that I presented at the front kind of surrounds what those pieces may look like for me and how differently they can look for others. It highlighted the importance of racial diversity versus cultural diversity, not just looking at the differences that we see on the surface, but really truly seeing how different we are and our perspectives are different due to our culturals being different. Focus on what we have been through rather than just what we are. Provides a deep understanding of diversity. It's past time to appreciate cultural diversity. Really highlights on preconceptions. It helps, or it identifies with modified behavior. It talks about how, or this author talked about how she would work to meet the expectations of peers in order to be noticed, to be seen, to be worked with in her courses at university. It also makes me think of my students at SCA, for how many of them may feel like they have to fit in or fit into the public eye just to be a part of the class and something as a teacher I need to work towards to embrace that diversity and to help them overcome those barriers. There was also a study that talked about the racial impact of hiring in the Silicon Valley, talked about how there were large numbers overall of Asian workers, as well as different ethnicity workers, but the biggest scarcity was the no climbing in the corporate ladder, where it talked about even though these people were valued as workers, they were not valued to move up into those manager type positions. The big forefront for this author was to bring your whole self to work, so to bring everything about you, not have to hide anything about your culture, and so forth. The next resources were the challenges of diversity. It goes through some data listing that 1 in 8 people are migrants. Currently 1 billion migrants are around today. It talks about Harmony Day, where in Australia, the 21st inclusiveness and respect day kind of highlights how they embrace that, but it also focuses on the fact that things aren't right today, and that's why there's just a day to identify that. The tri-component model of attitudes, this kind of breaks down stereotypes, how they come into play, how they're acted on, and what type of behavior results in that. It also highlights xenophobia, which is the fear and animosity toward different races. Ethnocentrism, which is thinking one race is superior, and then racism, showing negative emotions or actions towards specific races. You have explicit and implicit ways of showing that as well. Chapter 4 was engaging diverse communities. You learn from your community, so you identify the stakeholders and identify assets and opportunity to meet with them, to communicate with them, to collaborate with your community. The second big concept I pulled out was the connect with the community. So you need to designate a planner or a coordinator within your school to really help facilitate that relationship and to always be looking for that. I think teachers sometimes, especially at SCA, you feel like you're out of time. You're always on this time constraint, and you feel that you don't have the opportunity to do that. By placing a planner or coordinator kind of gives you the opportunity to pull those resources without getting bogged down. Looking at the digital divide, it kind of brought out the idea that avenues for communication vary dramatically between different ethnicities and different cultural groups, and how when you're communicating between them, you have to really identify what types of communication each subgroup, each ethnicity group may use. It also highlights the language and literacy barrier among different cultures. Number 4 kind of highlighted on the city planning and zoning, which really kind of focused on the idea that there is segregated communities and it's important to overcome barriers. For this one, I kind of posted the spectrum of public participation. This kind of shows the public participation goals. It shows how to inform, consult, involve, collaborate, and then empower. It shows specific examples for each of those as well. This is something that we could use at SCA to help establish more communication. Finally, growth. So establishing a planner or coordinator is something SCA can do to help boost community engagement. Exposure to more diverse backgrounds in the community. That's something I can do as a teacher to help my students. And embrace cultural differences, bringing up that there are cultural differences and making it a norm that there are cultural differences, and then supporting my students with that, finding opportunities and assignments that allow those cultural differences to show. Here is a list of my references that I used for today's module. Here is a snapshot of my correlation. Here is a snapshot of my relevancy. And here's a snapshot of my reflection. Thank you for joining my video. Have a wonderful day.